Hi guys, my name is Denise. I am a health freedom activist in California where I have a blog on Facebook called The Informed Mama. I also have a YouTube channel called The Informed Mama, and all of my videos, including this one, will be uploaded on my YouTube channel. So what we're going to do is I am going to bring on a friend of mine named Sandra. She is a registered nurse and has worked with public health. So I'm going to bring her on. Let's see. Add. And we're going to talk about what her experience was in nursing school. What did she see in public health? What did she learn about vaccines? Because I always get people saying, nurses know, doctors know, vaccines are safe and effective. Hi, Ruby. Sandra, I'm adding you. So if you press accept on the invitation, then it'll bring you on and just hold your phone voice.
There we go.
There we go. Hi.
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 Thanks for coming on and speaking with us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
I think I am muffled. Hold on. Okay, can we do a... It's echoing.
Let me get a headset then.
Yeah, try doing a headset.
Okay. I apologize, everyone.
No, it's Facebook. Okay. Hold on one second, guys. So we have an echo, so she's going to grab her headset.
Okay.
There we go.
Is that better?
Oh, perfect. Yes. Okay.
All right.
Facebook is funny like that. Depending on what title I have on the video, it'll start echoing.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to have you introduce yourself. So who are you, and, your background, your experience?
Yes, of course. My name is Sandra. I am a nurse. I have been more vocal lately on Facebook, and it is completely and totally opposite of what my personality is. So hopefully that says something to many.
Yeah.
I became active after my son suffered from vaccines. He had some injuries that put him into a very severe regression. And
Sorry.
after that experience and seeing how the issue was worsened by issues in the medical system that I recognized, I started really looking further into vaccines. What I've found has not been very good.
It's concerning,
It's very
right? Once you
concerning.
start looking into it. Now, what's your background?
I am a nurse. I have a bachelor's in science, of science and nursing, and I actually worked as a public health nurse right after graduation. And I worked for a nonprofit foundation in which we offered preventative health services to low-income communities. And within that program, we also ran a vaccines program.
Wow. How, looking back on that, how do you feel about that?
It's something that runs on my mind a lot lately as I've
Wow, where can I begin? One of my first realizations with that experience, and when I experienced it firsthand, was that I was under a lot of erroneous impressions in terms of the frequency in which these incidences were happening. So just based on my own experience, the way that it took several pediatricians and just several uh, medical professionals to deny what I was going through for me to realize that it was a real issue.
As a nurse, they denied your ability to recognize your child's vaccine injury?
Yes, and that was a very big insult already as a mother, to not be believed, and to top that off, it was overlooked, or it seemed as if I was the one that was crazy when I brought up these possible links to the vaccines as he was developing these issues, as I had studied them. So I knew that some of these side effects were possible, but I believed as well that they didn't happen frequently at all, and that if I were to recognize one of these, it would be, taken with great urgency, and that we would be documenting and reporting. So it was very disappointing when I realized that is not the case.
So when you went to school and when you sat through the program, years of the program, um, what did you learn about the safety and efficacy of vaccines?
Uh, for the most part, that they are safe and effective, that they are necessary for eradicating disease. And we reviewed, or we had an image of the schedule, or a sample image of the CDC schedule in our textbook, which we glanced over. And other than that, how to administer.
So, in your professional opinion, how do you feel these ingredients in these vaccines are affecting our children chronic health wise?
Well, after further, I want to say that I have been studying vaccines very closely, and to then see the issues be more apparent than I believe they were has opened my eyes to seeing that there is a very, very obvious relationship between the amount of vaccines that we are adding to children are becoming chronically ill. Uh, Even based on just watching my son have a seemingly perfect year of development, to then decline to the point of being described as severely autistic. And seeing all the other connections, and also recognizing even my own injuries with my past history of chronic inflammation and types of diseases as well, I realized that it is scary, to say the least, how obviously connected they seem to be, at least in my experience, in my eyes.
Did you see, looking back on everything, did you see vaccine injury when you were working as a public health nurse?
I did not see it firsthand. I did go above and beyond to look and to educate everyone that I met. And so at the time, it was in between 2015 and 2016 that, for example, one of the things that the CDC finally admitted to and put as a contraindication of was for the MMR and siblings that have been affected by that vaccine. And, I was one of the ones that were more vocal about bringing these issues up. However, within my scope, I only have I guess us, the ones that are promoting and health, and any after effects are then, it's really up to the patient to know that they should have been educated to know that they would go to a doctor if any of those things were to occur. So I didn't physically see those people anymore after the
Oh,
fact.
got you.
Yeah, so I was always very concerned, at least on my end, and I'm hoping that most nurses would do the same and that physicians would do the same, that you would leave them armed with information to acknowledge any of these changes. And so I had that knowledge with my child. Once I only worked there for a year. After that year, we moved to California. Then I was a new mom, and so I had that knowledge for my child. I knew what to look for, um, and so. But I thought that most professionals would have at least that level or a similar level of knowledge. So when I would come in or when I came back into the pediatrician, um, and I would bring up even the smallest things like the VIS, which they didn't hand me, by the way. I had to ask for it. They would immediately turn really cold and just make me feel like I was crazy and
Incapable?
yeah, completely. And they would start saying things or remarks like, maybe your child. There were just different instances where they would make me feel like I was the one not doing enough for my child. So it was very like, I was already just postpartum, having children. I have a 1-year and a 2-year-old, so I'm a new mom, and just that's a whole new arena for many of us new moms, right? And so we think we're trusting our pediatrician, and I did, even with my background. And so I realize now that we need to empower ourselves with the knowledge, and we need to be the ones that advocate for our children, because again, even with my background and given, I do get a little shy. I used to have terrible white coat syndrome because I've been a child of chronic illness as well. So and then I became a nurse, and so yeah, I can advocate for patients, but I've always had a position where I have to listen to the doctor, or even if I have to question, for a patient's sake, there is a trust, also a trust with your physician. And that trust was definitely broken when I had to take my child to several pediatricians, and to deny me the facts was very, very disturbing.
And this is the thing, especially for like you said, new moms, that this is a brand new arena, right? We read the books, so what to expect when expecting. We go to our doctor's appointments. We're so indoctrinated to think that this is just what you do without asking questions. And when moms go in there, we are made to feel incapable. We are made to feel like we shouldn't even be asking questions. The audacity of you to ask me for an insert or to sit down and talk to you about these illnesses. Healthcare has went from, it wasn't even healthcare, but right now, our healthcare system is so bought out by the pharmaceutical companies, you can't even ask questions. You can't even talk about the issues of immunizations, because then you're immediately labeled a conspiracy theorist or an anti-vaxxer. But the truth is, and the fact of the matter is, there are things in these vaccines, the ingredients, that children can react to. There are genes that make these children susceptible to vaccine injury. If there was no vaccine injury, we would not have the National Vaccine Injury Act. That's just the way it goes.
Right.
So as a medical professional, did you ever, I'm assuming, did you ever read the inserts before you became a public health nurse? Or is that when you started your journey?
I started to read the inserts while I was a public health nurse, because I had
Was it shocking?
questions. It was. It was. I had seen inserts before for other medications, so and I had studied pharmacology, so it wasn't completely shocking at first. other than the fact that it was a long, long list. Uh, it was just because I was repeatedly told that it was so just, it just never happened. It's just one of those things that we don't even worry about because it just never happens. Just to look for anaphylactic shock and, uh, things like that. But it was concerning to me as I started diving in, and I would compare the information that I was studying off of the CDC, because that's how I was training as well. And I would compare that with the inserts. And there were several times that I brought up questions, and then I was referred to the pharmaceutical representative. So then I would speak to that person, and I had, more scientific specific questions. And then I found out she had a business degree, not a science degree. So she couldn't really fully answer my questions, but she had answers. And those answers were obviously blanket answers that at the time, I think I got really, really close many times to really seeing what I should have been seeing, but I was deflected so many times, and then I moved, and so I didn't really get there at that time. I was super close. I brought up several questions that now they just keep popping up in my mind, and I knew that there was a reason to be concerned. So I don't know.
So right now, I know you're in California, and right now we're fighting a bill called SB 276, which restricts medical exemptions. What it's
Yes.
doing is it is creating a barrier between physicians and their patients. It's saying we don't trust these doctors to make the decisions if their patients deserve a medical exemption. And according to the CDC contraindications, it's anaphylaxis and coma. Everything else, you're okay to get vaccinated, even if your child has all the multiple issues that can possibly happen.
Mm-hmm.
How do you? What are your thoughts on this bill? I mean, how dangerous is this bill?
Yeah. Oh my God. It's incredibly dangerous. Um, I want to point out the fact that I took my son to three pediatricians, and the first two did not make the connection. So it was based off of my knowledge and my intuition, because I give a lot of credit to intuition now. So I hope moms are
Yeah.
listening to their intuition more. I hope. And I kept going because I knew what I saw, and I know what I studied. I'm one of those people that have a photographic memory. I don't just accidentally know a certain piece of information. And so when I finally found a doctor that acknowledged it, it wasn't, I guess there are these theories that there are doctors that are just like advertising medical exemptions, and you can buy them off the internet or something. That is not the case. I had to find a pediatrician that listened to me. I brought in the
Mm-hmm.
information. He probably was one of the only ones that acknowledged my background with vaccines, and maybe that played some weight in that or not. I'm not sure. But based off of that, and then his assessment and the discussion we had, then he admitted that it seemed to be vaccine related. However, it goes through a whole process of it diagnosing. So then there were other referrals
Mm-hmm.
to neurologists and geneticists, and we don't know. So I resorted to taking back my power as a mother and as a human being that wants nothing but health for her child. And I looked at alternative chiropractic care. I started looking at natural medications and just natural approaches, food changes, learn about the gut more, and saw that there was an association, despite the fact that in nursing school specifically, we were taught that Dr. Wakefield was just some person who who made a study so that it would reflect what he wanted it to look like, and then it was debunked. And that was pretty much the story and the end of
They
that.
told you that in school?
Yeah, it was part of it. And in fact, of course, my curiosity brought me back, so I've confirmed that it is pretty much, that's how it's worded in the books, and that's how it's worded as well. I started buying more medical books and looking at the language in there, and it is also worded pretty much that way.
Let's just clear this up for some viewers. Wakefield never did a study linking vaccines and autism. The study was on gut issues in children who have autism, and then he received the data from parents saying that these are the follow-ups to why this happened. You know, medically, when you go into a doctor's office, dentist's office, anywhere, they want your history, right? They want to know what's been done, what previous surgeries or anything that's happened. So parents were telling him that their child just had the MMR. And at the end of this study, he said more data needs to be collected before anything can be linked together. He was exonerated. There were other people on this study, and it's been replicated. We are now seeing a distinct connection between children with autism and gastrointestinal issues, correct?
Correct.
So it was never a debunked MMR study or autism study, and let's just say the entire CDC schedule has never been tested cohesively together. No other vaccine has been tested in connection with autism. So we don't know what causes autism. There's no way to say that vaccines don't cause autism when we have no idea what doesn't. So it's not genetic. Let's talk about that. I know a lot of parents say autism's genetic. You're born with it. Do you feel that your baby was born with it?
No, absolutely not. He was not. He was not. And not only not do I just not feel it, but I measured and kept up with his milestones, so I knew for a fact he didn't fall below any milestone in terms of intellect or motor skills or anything like that. He had some issues that were seemingly minor at the time, rhinitis, just runny nose, and some gut issues where he would throw up sometimes or vomit sometimes. But he still was developing just in time. In fact, some things were ahead of his age. He had a few words and a few things that he was doing that once he started regressing, they were completely gone.
And see, autism isn't our only worry. I know, like with my son, he was born completely healthy, beautiful baby, and he got the vitamin K, he got the hepatitis, and then immediately he got jaundice. So then he's under the lamp, and then he comes back with eczema. Babies aren't born unhealthy with gut issues, so then he has eczema, and then he had night terrors, and then he had allergies, rhinitis, ear infections constantly, sinusitis constantly. And I remember he was in preschool, and I get a phone call from he's a year and a half, and I get a phone call from his preschool, and they tell me that I need to start sending him to our local center to get tested for autism, because he was no longer socializing the way he did, and he was spinning. And at this time, my partner and I at the time, we were relocating, so we were split up, and I made the choice. I'm like, kind of denial parent. I'm like, no, he's fine. He's fine. I'm not going to take him. But coincidentally, that's when I stopped vaccinating him. And we were able to kind of bring him back. And, he still has all of the chronic illnesses, but he's not on a spectrum. I truly feel as his mother and, as a human, kind of by seeing these reactions, any more vaccines would have been very damaging to my baby. So I appreciate you telling parents that they need to get back their power as parents and understand that little voice when you're about to vaccinate your baby saying, I can't do it, I shouldn't do it, something is wrong. I need to continue to learn, because I did that with my son. I didn't take him in to get vaccines because I felt something was wrong, but I felt like a bad mom if I decided not to do that. So I had my ex take him in, and I never saw him get vaccinated because I couldn't do it. And that says something.
Yeah.
And that continues the mom guilt over and over, because I could have stopped it. But it's time we start becoming moms again and dads again and parents that educate yourself.
And ask questions,
Where, yeah.
because when a doctor is telling you the advantages of a vaccine, if it sounds a lot like a sales pitch, it's probably a sales pitch. And I encourage everyone to truly look at the information. It's available online, and it's listed on the CDC. And look at the ingredients. Like you said, like you mentioned, those are things that we're not taught in nursing school or medical school, or a lot of things are kind of just brushed off as like the mercury issue. Oh, thimerosal is not the same, but we all know it's a derivative, and of course it's going to have neurological impact. And so, and also look at the studies, look at who is sponsoring that study, and just make the best decision for yourself and your family. But also, I think we're also past a lot of that conversation, because we are also getting into the part where our medical freedoms are being infringed. So this is also, in regards to the medical system and the high mortality rate for pregnant women, and the things that are happening that are just out of control, and it requires people to notice it and to point it out. And one thing today, I actually met with Senator Stone, which who I happen to be a constituent of, and I was given the opportunity, thanks to being vocal, I guess people are recognizing that I have a story to tell, and so I was invited to this meeting, and I was able to express to him my side of the story, where there's a lot, it seems to me like it's the story of the medical exemptions is very one-sided, with saying that there are doctors that are just selling these things as if they were like candy or something. And that has not been my experience. My experience has been completely the opposite of that, and where there are physicians that are not recognizing the adverse effects. And so it is causing people to continue to look for physicians until you find one that is equipped enough with the knowledge. But with that said, it is still our freedom to look for other opinions. And so if I didn't like my first physician's opinion, it is my freedom to look for a second or third or fourth or whatever, because ultimately we got my son the help he needed, because as a mother, we know when there's something wrong. And I'm very fortunate that I have a background as a nurse as well, and I was able to compile that information, but that's not fair. It's not fair that mothers are being put out there without that information. So who is providing that informed consent? And if the doctors are not doing it, and they're not even obviously informed themselves, then there is a real issue here, and you're taking away the SB 276, for example, is taking away even further power from that relationship, and narrowing down the person or the people that make those decisions about medical exemptions. It's so dangerous, and you can't streamline health like that. That is, it is completely against even medical ethics, and in my, from what we should be practicing. So,
And I'm hearing that a lot. And, thank you for saying that. I'm hearing a lot of people saying they're going to a different doctor in a different county, or they're driving, 5 hours to go see a doctor. What is the difference when you go to a heart surgeon and they tell you nothing's wrong and you feel something's wrong? I'm going to find the best heart surgeon I can to tell me if this is serious enough to have to deal with it. So with I have a court case. It's been a court case, and the doctor threw my medical exemption, or the judge threw my medical exemption to the side and said that my son received it biasly because the doctor was not his primary care physician. But what that judge did not understand was my son's primary care physician never even notated that he had an injury or he had a reaction. I, as a mother, had to go get my child's medical records. I had to highlight, cross-reference, check every single date that I went for a vaccine or my child went for a vaccine, and then looked at the return date for rhinitis and ear infection. And it all was in a week. Was in a week. So nothing was documented. They sent me back to the same doctor that never documented my son's injury. I had to leave the county because that doctor I went to was educated and educated themselves on vaccine injury and how to actually spot it, because doctors don't know how to spot it. Oh yeah, your son's sick. Here's another medication. Let's try this. It's a trial and error for healthcare. They don't know what's wrong with you. They don't know how to recognize it. So now we have Senator Pan coming in telling us, your doctor has no ability to do this for you. So now we're going to have the state. This is a very slippery slope that we have. And you are lucky that you have that background. But for other mothers who don't, but who feel something happened to their child, it's not fair to them. No. And it's not fair to that child to have to continue into a medical procedure that they have already been injured with. Yeah. It's tyranny. It's medical tyranny. It's government tyranny. So I wanted you to speak out, and I know I appreciate you coming on. I know it gets a little nerve-wracking, but we need our nurses. We need our nurses. We need our doctors. We need our medical assistants. We need the medical professionals to come out and to start speaking up for these children. I had a nurse tell me she has 30 years experience, so she knows. She's never seen a vaccine injury before. She's just not educated in vaccine injury. Right. And this is where we're at in the medical system. Exactly. So thank you very much for speaking up. I really appreciate it. Is there anything else you would like to tell our viewers?
No, just thank you for giving us the time to share our stories, and ultimately, just take your power back as a mother, as a parent, as a human being, that we are all unique and we all have our histories and our truths. So let's not let these people silence us with bureaucracy or fake science, because really we need to keep ourselves just alert and aware. So
we do. We're capable. As a parent, you're fully capable of making these decisions. So thank you for coming on. I appreciate your time, and we will definitely talk again.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. Bye, guys. Bye. Thanks for watching. Bye.